Hamakavi Barzel presents Rabbi Nachum Shifren, Torah scholar, author, public speaker, and good friend of the late Rabbi Meir Kahana.
Well, looks like we are back. And back meaning back from whatever it was that we were doing previously. Welcome to everybody on the eve of Leil Shabbat. We are back on track with our podcast and our Dvar Torah. A few words about some interesting things as we try to point them out in a proper sequence here. The whole, if it wasn't so tragic, it would be comical. What's happening in the Middle East right now, specifically in Israel, in that part of the country, it is absolutely the most horrific desecration of God's name that there could ever be. At no time in the history of humanity has one nation attacked another nation, and the nation of the aggrieved, the ones that were being attacked, are called the aggressors, are called the monsters, going against international law, etc. No time have we ever seen the people that were attacked in a war giving food, comfort, medicine, diapers, drinking water to the enemy. It's Kafkaesque, to put it mildly. But this is what's happening. I can tell you there's one group of people in the world that by next week they'll be feeling a little bit sheepish. Some of you might know who I'm hinting at. And that is no other than the Iranians. Now, not the Iranian citizens, but the Iranian regime, an evil, evil regime. Every Purim, which we're going to talk about in a minute, every Purim falls, it's going to be on the 14th of Adar, which is the Hebrew month of Adar, which is basically right around mid-April time, actually mid-March, this year anyway. Every year, our sources have it that this has been a tradition ever since the state of Israel, the modern state of Israel, was established. And the tradition is that whenever Purim comes, the Iranian regime gets a little bit nervous. Why would that be? Well, if we go back a couple thousand years ago to the Persian Empire, which was pretty big, pretty powerful. They were the main game in town at that time. And King Ahasuerus was the king, and Haman was his viceroy. And the old question of anti-Semitism pops up. It's popped up in every generation, actually, for the last couple thousand years. And as the story unfolds in Persia at that time, usually Semitism occurs if it's like the old follow the money trail. Who benefits from it? It's usually some scoundrel wrapped in a nationalistic flag of sorts. In this case, Haman, a very evil man, trying to butter up to the king of Persia, telling him that the Jews are scattered and they're all over the place and they have different customs. And then he says, Lo shaveh lamelech. It's not worth it to the king to keep them around. They're different. They have different holidays, different beliefs, a different deity. They're just simply an anachronism, and it'd be a good idea to get rid of them. So the king heard that and gave his ring, his signet, to Haman to be the perpetrator of that dastardly deed. Of course, we know what happened. Hopefully there'll be another murderer caught and sentenced. We'll see. Not so sure here in LA these days. That's a subject for a different day, right? But what Haman tried to do was actually done to him. He had 10 sons, and every one of them was hung by our protagonist Mordechai And of course, Esther, Queen Esther, the beautiful, lovely Queen Esther, who was the apple of the eye of Ahasuerus. Mordechai and Esther basically turned the whole thing around. And of course, we don't see, it's interesting, we don't see the word God in the story of the Megillah, right? Megillah is the reading of the story of the Jews in Persia and this whole history here. We don't see it. And for a couple of reasons. One of which is that the Jews at that time were, it was a difficult situation. Without going into too much detail, their connection with God and their Savior and their Redeemer was a little bit weak, and that's why bad things happen in times like that. However, because of a few things like Esther called for a fast, everybody should fast for 2 days. And you know something? Thousands and tens of thousands of Jews all fasted. That was a sign to God that there was unity and there was purpose, and there was indeed a good reason for him to shed kindness and mercy on the Jewish people, which he did. Instead of the Jews being murdered, the Persian evil people were murdered. 5,000, they say. And then the Jews completely turned the picture around from Yagon v'anacha le-simcha v'sason, as it says. From agony and anguish to absolute joy and jubilation, as it says in the Megillah. The Megillah is a story of Purim. So once again, we see how miraculous things are in life. And we have a saying in the Talmud that you should never despair of anything, even if there's a sword hanging over your head. You don't ever give up. And this is the secret to Jewish survival. They never gave up, whether it was the Maccabees and the Maccabean War against the Greeks, whether it was in the brutal and murderous Holocaust in Germany and other places. There were quite a few people that did give up and did despair. But there was always a kernel of hardcore people that knew the secret of the Jewish survival is not only to never give up, but to raise your head high and show people you're not afraid to be a Jew. That means wearing the appropriate daily garbs, the accoutrements that we put on. It's called tefillin, and all those things that Jews do as mandated in the Torah. So we have this amazing turnabout. It's called Nafochu, whereas 1 minute the Jews are being persecuted, they're fearing for their life, and because they did something miraculous, which I think is miraculous for everybody to be fasting. It's like calling for all the people in the United States to fast for whatever, July 4th or D-Day or whatever it is. That's not going to happen. We all know that will never happen. Yet on this day, it did happen. And I think that was a clear sign to God that the Jews were ready for redemption on that day. So, as we mentioned before, if you want to talk about superstitious people, if you look at the Iranians on the 14th of Adar, which is Purim, they're kind of looking over their shoulder. Word has it, sources have it, testimonials have it, that the Iranian regime is a little spooked on Purim, and rightly so. We have the miracle of the light in the moving on from Purim to this week's parsha, TETZAVEH. God is telling Moses to tell the Jewish people when they want to, and when they have to actually prepare oil for the sanctuary, right? There's a couple ways of making oil. If anybody out there knows about oil, there's a couple types. There's a kind that's very, very clear, very pure. It's called extra virgin, I believe, in the stores. And this is the kind of oil that was required for the Holy Temple. And Rashi, our commentator in the Torah, explains that this kind of oil can be found in olives that are at the very top of the tree. Why? They get most of the sunlight. They ripen quickly, or quicker, and are very easy to crush. Now, you don't want to crush them too hard. Why? Because this oil has to be absolutely pure of sediments, right? kind of a kosher type of an oil, if you will. Sediments, meaning in Hebrew shmarim. Shmarim are the offshoots, the off product of crushing the olives. Now, the first crushing is only for the light. And this is a very symbolic thing. It can only be used for the candles in the temple. Whereas further crushing of the olive emits a sediment, right? And that olive oil can be used for the offerings, like the flour offerings, whatnot, on the mizbeach, the altar. So this concept of pure oil, meaning oil turning into light, right, is something. Lighting the candles, meaning how do you light a candle with oil? Well, you put it in a little dish, put a wick in it, and there you go. Many people do that. A lot of people just light candles with wax, which is okay too. So this concept is very profound in a way. It's talked about in the oral law. The Talmudic literature is filled with it. This distinction between the purity of the initial oil, its viscosity, its clarity, it's completely without blemish, as it were. And only that kind of oil could be used to light the candles in the temple. And you might say, well, what difference does it make? Well, again, there's so much symbolism by everything we do in life. And the fact that this oil is so pure that can't even be used for anything else in the temple other than for light tells us a lot about the priorities of light, meaning goodness. Light meaning is symbolic for wisdom, right? And this is the scene that we have in the temple when, God willing, it will be renewed and all these activities will take place. So it's interesting that this week's Parsha talks about the light and corresponding, of course, to Purim, the great miracle where there was darkness all over the land and Jews were afraid for their lives. But because they did one simple thing, there was an equal, how should we say, one action creates a reaction. In chemistry, we know that. And here, the action of the Jews being together, not being disparate, and in that way, they elicited a redemption. So, without going further, we want to wish everybody a happy Purim. Don't forget to go to wherever Purim is being celebrated. Have a shot of vodka, if you will. And it is a commandment. We are supposed to get a little bit drunk. I'm not a drinker, but, well, let's just say that you can ask witnesses about what I did. And I think they'll tell you the truth that truly we're not supposed to. The joy of Purim is so great that it could be. It says in the Gemara in the Talmud that all the holidays will be null and void other than Purim and Yom Kippur, of course. Purim meaning happiness, utter happiness, and we drink to that happiness, and that goes a long way. So with that, Shabbat Shalom to everybody, and may the candles, the light that we kindle, which represents, of course, wisdom, may that be translated into our ultimate wisdom, which is the Torah coming from the word or, meaning light, and may that be our motto as we go into the Shabbat and next week for Purim. God bless everybody. Have a wonderful Purim. Shabbat Shalom.